Join us for our December 6, 2015 service at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Columbia. Hope for Humanists, a youth collaborative service by Reverend Molly Housh Gordon.
My name is Adele Dorman, and this is Fragile and Hidden by Henry Nouwen. Because life is very small, you can never see it happening. Have you ever seen a tree actually grow? Can you see a child grow? Growth is too gentle, too tender. Life is basically hidden. It is small and begs for constant care and protection. If you're committed to always saying yes to life, you're going to have to become a person who chooses it when it is hidden. I have a case in point from my own life. I live in a community with handicapped adults. Just after I moved in, they asked me if I'd be willing to take care of Adam. Adam cannot speak. Adam cannot walk. Adam is what some people might call a vegetable. Would you be willing to wash Adam, they asked? Would you be willing to dress him and give him breakfast? As I began to take care of Adam, I slowly discovered what life is about. Adam began to teach me about the smallness of living. As I bathed this 25-year-old man, washed his face, combed his hair, fed, and dressed him, I began to realize what an incredible gift life is. Adam spoke to me in a language I didn't know he could speak. He told me how hidden, vulnerable, and deep life is. Being with him gave me a sense of being closely in touch with living. After a while, I felt an enormous desire to leave my office and my books and to be with Adam, because he would tell me what life is about. I began to realize that every time people say yes to life in whatever form, life on death row, the life of the severely handicapped, the life of the broken and the homeless, they start to give hope to each other. I had never experienced hope so concretely until I began to wash Adam. Adam strengthened my hope. It wasn't optimism. Adam is never going to get better, but he offers hope. This hope can form a very strong bond among people who are willing to go where life is fragile and hidden.
This is called Hope by Václav Havel. Hope is a state of mind, not a state of the world. Either we have hope within us or we don't. Hope is not a prognostication, it's an orientation of the spirit. You can't delegate that to anyone else. Hope in this deep and powerful sense is not the same as joy. When things are going well, or the willingness to invest in enterprises that are obviously headed for early success, but rather an ability to work for something to succeed. Hope is definitely not the same as optimism. It's not the conviction that something will turn out well, but the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. It is hope, above all, that gives us strength to live and to continually try new things, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do here and now. In the face of this absurdity, life is too precious a thing to permit its devaluation by living pointlessly, emptily, without meaning, without love, and finally, without hope.
I want to begin by repeating one of those lines. If you are committed to this life, you are going to have to become a person who chooses it when it is hidden. Henry Nouwen was a Catholic priest, but he comes close in the story that Adele just told to a good definition of what I mean when I title my sermon, A Humanist Kind of Hope. It is a hope that scouts out life's meaning wherever it is hidden and sees evidence of human dignity all around us. A humanist kind of hope is committed to this world and this life because this is the one we have. A humanist kind of hope claims the power and resilience of the human spirit, even as we look with clear and critical eyes upon the realities of the world around us. A humanist kind of hope does not await the impossible or the supernatural, but enacts the incredible human capacity to say yes to life as it is, even in the face of great odds. A hoping humanist does as the poet Ellen Bass instructs us when she writes, "The thing is to love life, to love it even when you have no stomach for it, and everything you've held dear crumbles like burnt paper in your hands, your throat filled with the silt of it. When grief sits with you, its tropical heat thickening the air, heavy as water, more fit for gills than lungs. When grief weights you like your own flesh, only more of it, an obesity of grief, and you think, how can a body withstand this? Then you hold life like a face between your palms, a plain face, no charming smile, no violet eyes, and you say, yes, I will take you. I will love you again." This is not a naive optimism or wishful thinking, denial or delusion. This is hard, true hope. It is human resilience and resistance to the life and love-denying force of despair. It is the kind of hope I see most frequently among us, in hospital rooms and small groups, generally in our life together, not the hope for a miracle in spite of evidence to the contrary, but a hope and deep faith in the preciousness of life and the power of love, no matter the starkness of the reality we may face. Sometimes this hope is for the courage to accept what is. Sometimes it is a quiet commitment to change what can be changed. Sometimes it is hope for the strength of love to carry us through great struggle. Sometimes it is just a wild and desperate yes to life, even in the midst of pain. If you are committed to this life, you are going to have to become a person who chooses it when it is hidden. You are going to have to become a person who loves the world when it is broken and terrible. A person whose love for this life is tried and tested and exhausted and chosen again, because this is the life we have, and it matters. This week, as I prepared to preach on humanism and hope, another mass shooting took us all on a familiar journey of disbelief, grief, powerlessness, exhaustion, anger, and horror. In this moment, as the insane acts of mass gun violence outpace the days in the year, and as firearm deregulators circle the wagons and raise the cash once more to be sure that nothing changes, in this moment, I will be honest that my hope for human progress feels a bit foolhardy. Perhaps it has even become easier to believe that Jesus will come down from heaven and break the world's rifles over his knees and turn them into plowshares than to believe in our political will and resistance that will be necessary to implement real and lasting gun regulation. But humanism is a tradition that seeks evidence and attempts to see the world clearly. It is a tradition that believes in human value and agency and the possibility of human progress. And so a humanist kind of hope is deeply challenged in our time. There is little proof of lasting progress, no overwhelming evidence that things will change. The shadow side of humanity continues to show itself wherever the failure to love leaves its space. The devastating consequences of despair, division, fear, and hate pile up around us in violent acts, defensive ignorance, and the simple failures of empathy. And so to me it is clear that in our time, a humanist kind of hope can no longer mean an unqualified optimism in the inevitability of human progress. A humanist hope cannot insist upon overwhelming evidence in order to find hope, or it will never be found, but must satisfy itself instead with small and glimmering acts of compassion, lighting the dark all around us. My colleague Meg Riley said this week, perhaps in times like this, hope is to be found in our very tears. That despite the relentless frequency of the bullets, we remain human because each one continues to break our hearts. A humanist kind of hope in our age will see the world clearly and the complicated, beautiful, and terrible humans within the world clearly, will grapple furiously with the reality of despair, and then will choose life and love anyhow. A humanist kind of hope, then, is not a gift or a given, but a rigorous and active choice. When our hope for humans is tried and tested and exhausted, hope asks us to choose it again. It is hope above all, writes humanist philosopher and Czech political dissident and statesman Václav Havel, that gives us strength to live, even in conditions that seem as hopeless as ours do now. In the face of this absurdity, he continues, life is too precious a thing to permit its devaluation by living pointlessly, emptily, without love, without hope. A humanist hope in our time remains present to the world, even amid despair, and insists upon the meaning of our lives and the possibility of our love, because life is too precious to do otherwise. But this is no easy task. Humanist writer and educator Lawrence Rifkin tells of a lecture he gave on humanism as a source of inspiration and meaning. And he tells about a woman in the audience who challenged him deeply with her question, or more accurately, with the tone of her question. With a tinge of deep need in her voice, she interrupted his lecture to ask, "But what about hope?" He tried to explain, humanists find hope in creativity and ideas, in progress and possibility. The woman pressed him, "I'm struggling. How does that help me find hope?" And so he delved deeper into his philosophical toolkit. Humans find hope in the openness of the future, that without a divine plan unfolding, there's room for human agency and the possibility of change. The woman looked on unmoved. At some point later in the lecture, she slipped out of the back of the auditorium, and Rifkin says he was left haunted. How do we offer and find hope, he wondered, without resorting to an appeal to the supernatural for comfort and assurance? This was the core question, or one of them, that came up for our youth group as we discussed hope in preparation for this sermon. How do we hold a hope that is not delusion or wishful thinking, that is not false, but that is truly and life-sustainingly hopeful? Rifkin discovered in his moment of challenge that the true answer to this for a humanist could not be a list of platitudes or rationalizations. It could not be a philosophical argument. It had to be an embodied move into relationship. His answer, he later realized, should have been a steaming cup of coffee and a listening ear. The answer was not more words, and this is hard for humanists. The answer was accompaniment. The answer was a tangible act of love and compassion that said, "You are not alone." Reason by itself is not deep enough to hold us in the tragic reality of our world. It is only when combined with the lived experience of love, receiving and giving it, that we find true sustaining hope for ourselves and our world. Therefore, the humanist focus in our time must be an unflinching appeal to clarity and reason and the world as it is, intertwined with an undergirding and profound ethic of empathy and the commitment to an embodied and real love. Our youth came down in this same place in their conversation. "We find hope in people and actions," one of them said. Another told the story of an online community that renews their hope, and another spoke of the power of their youth group community. Hope is held between us, and this beloved community kind of hope upholds us, even when our own stores run short. This is true in our individual lives, and it is true at the level of a larger beloved community in our world. Humanism puts the onus on us for the transformation of our world. There is no deus ex machina in this story, no hand of God coming down to make it all right. Just us, in our stumbling, dancing, failing, helping, hating, halting, loving humanness, trying to do the best we can, and significantly to do it together. Therefore, a humanist kind of hope is never a wish that things would be otherwise, but a commitment to the kind of loving action that will make us otherwise, and so doing may even transform what is possible through the ordinary miracle of our human compassion. This hope is the starting place and the ongoing work of beloved community and of our congregation. Our job is, in the words of Reverend Victoria Safford, to bear witness to the possibility of living with dignity, bravery, and gladness as befits a human being. This week, amid a news cycle and a Facebook feed full of despair for our country and our world, and cynicism at the political forces that surround us, a small little story popped up in my social media about a high school student's art project. She asked an array of her fellow students to pose for a photo, and she secretly filmed them. One by one, she asked each student to pose and snapped a shot. Most of them looked something like this. Then she told them, "My project is to take pictures of things I find beautiful," and she snapped another picture. On the video, you watch each person process what she's just said. She thinks I'm beautiful. Some of them look embarrassed. Some of them look surprised and laugh. Some of them are profoundly moved. But every single one of their faces transforms into a radiant smile the moment they hear those words. The difference between the first shot and the second, which you can see together, is stunning. 2:1, every single one of them became even more beautiful the moment they were reminded of the truth of their human beauty. You must say yes to the hidden things in life, says Henry Nouwen. And as we see these kids blossom through this video, hope is not lost. The kids are all right. It was a simple conceit from a wise student, but a chance for us all to be reminded that the human spirit unfolds like a flower under even the slightest show of love. Even the smallest act of compassion can unfurl hope. And we see it happening all around us. If we remember to look and to make space for it amid the machines of despair, because it's quiet, as Henry Nouwen says, and it's small and it's hidden, love is being enacted, hope is being chosen, and connections are being made. Everywhere you go, someone's spirit, their human spirit, is ready to unfold like a flower. And that is the source of my humanist hope. And so I end with the words of my beloved colleague Wayne Arneson, who writes, "Take courage, friends. The way is often hard. The stakes are very high, and the path is never clear. But take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone." May it be so.